Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca, Canada's authority on home ownership. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Ross, on Monday, Canadians got their first federal budget in over 2 years. John in Thunder Bay asked, can you ask Ross, what should we expect in the housing market with the announcements made in the budget? Anything in there for homeowners or people looking to buy a home or finding something affordable?
No, there's nothing in there to make housing more affordable. But what I will say, Jim, is that this is totally opposite to what we were expecting a short 2 weeks ago. I mean, 2 weeks ago we were expecting to hear first-time buyer changes to the first-time buyer program, changes to first-time buyer assistance, help. Meaning, we heard a whole bunch of potential talk about capital gains taxation of the personal resident. We heard a lot of things. We heard about income tax, wealth taxes. We heard about a lot of things. And this budget, really nothing came down to address anything from our perspective other than to allow the current plan, which is, to get through COVID, to be released. In terms of housing, what we were not asked to consult in this budget, okay? So we did consult, meaning we reached out about and warning against any benefit being added to first-time buyers. We say if any benefit is added to any change to the home trading infrastructure takes place, it should always take place in the trough of a trading cycle. It should never be taking place at any other time in a housing market. So that means about 80% of the time, no changes to a home trading infrastructure should take place. That includes changes to interest rates, changes to mortgage lending rules, changes to taxation policy. Nothing should take place except in the trough of a trading cycle. And the reason for that is all of the consequences that we have seen over the last 5 years here in Canada. Every single change that the government brought out, where they said that was going to be a solution for housing affordability in this country, has failed. Just the opposite has happened. This has happened from coast to coast. First, it was foreign buyer tax in British Columbia. Then it was vacant homes tax in British Columbia. Then it was the OSFI rule changes, instituting a mortgage qualification rate, which they called it, which we don't call it to this day. It's actually a variable debt, a gross debt service ratio. But I'll leave that for another day. Then we had the Ontario rules to foreign buyers, vacant home tax, all being applied. Nothing worked. Just the opposite. A pandemic hit, and magically, the greatest amount of house price change was recorded in Canadian history. And this is what I would like to get across to our listeners today. The people have tuned in and listened for a couple of years. I'm going to read you a statement from last week's release from the Canadian Real Estate Association. So the sentence I'm going to state is a word-for-word comment from their report, which you can go to the CREA website right now, CREA Stats, and read for yourself. The actual, not seasonally adjusted, national average home price was a record $716,828 in March of 2021, up 31.6% from the same month last year. Let me repeat their words again. The actual national average home price we have the Canadian Real Estate Association on the record stating that the actual national average home is worth $716,000. Now, in the past, the Canadian Real Estate Association has been very careful with their wording. This wording really only started to change, them not being as careful as what they've been, when Greg Klump quit last February, or was fired, or whatever actually happened. No one knows. Because last March, the month right after Klump had left, this is what the release said. The actual national average price for homes sold in March 2020 was over $540,000. Notice the difference. Because when Ms. Freeland yesterday announced your budget, she released a budget believing the Canadian Real Estate Association was talking about the national average price of a Canadian home. Last March, the Canadian Real Estate quoted the national average price for homes sold in March. Last week, they reported the actual national average home price was a record $716,828, up 31.6% from the same month. Luckily, the federal government pulled back from what they were going to do. Now, they made huge mistakes on the housing front in this budget, Jim. Huge mistakes. But the mistake is no greater than every single economist, every single housing analyst, every single realtor in Canada, every single national newspaper who has gone out in the last year, in the last week, and claimed that the national average price increased 31%. It didn't. You can put the two reports side by side, last year's and this year's, and there's a decisive changing by the wordsmiths who wrote the report. The national average price of homes sold in March 2020 is not the same as the national average home price in March of 2021. It is two totally different things. The national average home purchased in March of 2021 was composed of homes 33% at a 33% higher share of sales out of British Columbia than was reported last year. This renders the fraud, the false statements, the outright deception of the Canadian public in black and white. It's on the Canadian Real Estate Association's website, which you can't find unless you downloaded it last year or you have an old news report, was the wording for last March, because CREA carefully scrubs their website of last month's reports and every report that has ever been on there. The only one you can find is this month's report. So unless you've kept a copy of last year's, you don't have it. The budget that was released yesterday did not address home construction. Instead, it addressed retrofitting Canadian homes with a $40,000 interest-free loan backed by CMHC to make your home greener. Now, if you're a Canadian homeowner, you would be an idiot not to take a $40,000 home loan and apply that against making your house more energy efficient, which we believe allows you to live a net zero life, meaning net zero pollution, net zero carbon, and net zero interest. Your home can cost you nothing. You would be foolish not to take advantage of that $40,000 loan. Now, of course, you've got to be able to structure it so that you're not hurt in case you lose your job, but that's the case. The government didn't do is say, we are going to request that the Canadian municipalities, in order for them to receive the billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that we've given them the last year for transit, that we're giving them now for affordable housing, that we're giving them now to help with childcare, that they must, as a deal, to get those billions and billions and billions of dollars, add more backyards to this nation. We didn't hear immigration discussed in this budget, Jim. We didn't say that a policy of the federal liberal government is going to be, we will commit to only allowing a new immigrant household to enter this country with a corresponding new backyard being built in this country. For every household that we add to this nation, whether it's Canadian citizens getting married, finding a new Canadian household, or it's new immigrants coming into this country, forming a new Canadian household, we will add a backyard for every new household that is added to this country. Not a balcony, a backyard. That would have immediately started to remediate the Canadian housing stock. It would have made houses overwhelmingly across this nation, coast to coast, more affordable. It would have created hundreds of thousands of new jobs, high-paying construction jobs for a long period of time. You probably could stretch this out up to 15 years, if not 20. You could have people building fantastic lives through these jobs. All of those new homes could all be made to be net zero. We could have had an entire solar revolution take place in this country simply by remediating the housing stock that has a backyard. Because as we all know, you can't put enough solar panels or wind turbines on the top of a high-rise condo to power all of the people who live there. All of these things, Jim, that were possible, all of these things that could have lowered the shelter cost for the average Canadian family didn't take place. Why? There is only one reason, Jim, that we have said on this show. The greed of organized real estate to continue to function with the highest number of realtors possible, meaning the lowest level of professionalism that has ever been existing in that industry. I mean, you've got over 50% of the 140,000 members of CREA who will not even sell a home in the last 2 years. They came out and told Ms. Freeland last Friday the national average home price was a record $716,000, 828. They didn't say the national average price of homes sold. No. They said the national average Canadian home is worth $716,828. They're up 31.6%, they have the audacity to say. They didn't once debunk a single comment from the Canadian Real Estate Association, the British Columbia Real Estate Association, the Alberta Real Estate Association, the Ontario Real Estate Association, the Centris out of Quebec. They didn't debunk the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, the Calgary Real Estate Board, the Toronto Real Estate Board, the Real Estate Board of Hamilton Burlington, the Real Estate Board of the London St. Thomas Real Estate Board, the Nova Scotia Real Estate Board. They didn't debunk any of them, even though the data clearly debunks them. I mean, the insanity of this report that I'm saying, Jim, that the finance minister relied upon to form this budget after a year of our nation being locked down under a pandemic, yet the greed of realtors and the incompetence of today's realtor has refused to address was debunking that the average home price increased 31.6% across the nation year over year in March. A child with a calculator who had access to the CREA charts could debunk this myth by looking at it. Yet there is a universal ignorance on the ability to use a calculator and read a spreadsheet and type in a few numbers and find out how this magic 31.6% gain was made. We had a budget, Jim, that was released that did not add one backyard to this nation. A nation who currently needs about 2 million new backyards to bring home ownership back to the affordable level.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, a realtor from Ontario, Connie asked, A recent case in Ontario was lost by a home buyer who bought a home that was smaller than what they were told was on the listing. How can I protect my buyers from mistakes like this? Well, how can you sell a home that's smaller than what it actually is? Or actually is smaller than what you said it is? Isn't that, falsifying information?
You can't sell a car with a 4-cylinder engine and claim it has a V8 and get away with it as a used car dealer, Jim. But you can say a house is 25% bigger than what it is in Ontario. And the courts are going to let you get away with it. The system is going to let you get away with it. And because this is case law, it sets a precedent for all other cases.
So in other words, when you buy a house, you got to take out your tape measure and measure it yourself because you can't believe what the real estate agent is telling you.
Okay, so Jim.
And why is that legal? I don't understand the court ruling.
This is my world, Jim. Okay, this is my world. In the 25 years that I sold homes, the 40 years, 3 generations that my family listed homes, we hand measured, even though we had all the fancy tools, laser measures, far before any other realtor in this country had them. We had them, but we still wouldn't rely upon them. We got a tape measure, and we measured, and we calculated. You do that so that you don't make a mistake. You do that to protect your home buyers, because no one is out there to protect the home buyer. We have home buyers, Jim, right now going out there buying houses unconditional. No financing condition, no home inspection, in a bidding war, overpaying for houses because the real home trading infrastructure is totally biased for sellers and for realtors to earn commission. Nothing is there to protect the home buyer. This court case that Connie has referenced is case in point. Here we have a realtor asking me, so she probably knows something to do with our history in the business, what can she do to protect her home buyers? In other words, whatever real estate board she's affiliated with, and obviously the province of Ontario, the OREA, and Korea don't help her. They don't tell her how to protect her buyers. They don't tell her what she needs to do, or she wouldn't be asking. The first thing that Connie needs to understand is each court case that goes through in your province impacts the home trading infrastructure. It impacts how you should be writing your clauses once a decision is rendered on that case. This is for every province in Canada. Look, we used to do an offer because we couldn't have intellectual property on the clauses that we inserted in our offers. Okay? But every court case that happened that we were aware of, we revised our offers to reflect what the decision of the courts were. We would then present that on an opponent's, you notice I use the term an opponent broker's listing. Within a couple of weeks generally, magically, we would see the clauses that we were the originators of show up in offers that were being presented on our properties. Then within a couple of months, the clauses that we had wrote, the clauses we had paid lawyers to review, the clauses that we were the first people to bring out in our local trading area were being used by everybody. Then, within a year or two, magically, these clauses appeared in the standard forms. It's called web forms with Canadian Real Estate Association. It would appear in the web forms. They were official OREA clauses. We could not control the IP of those clauses. Okay? You can't control the IP. So this is what I need to tell you, Connie. You have to fine-tune every single offer that you write. You have to look at as many offers that come into your office as your fellow agents will give you access to. You need to go through every single contract you see and dissect them and try to see the loopholes and the concrete areas of the contract where you could be attacked or where you're attack-proof. You need to contact your lawyers who work with your brokerage and ask them how you need to revise those clauses. Sadly, Connie, the way that organized real estate works in this country, the lawyers are biased towards the seller side of the equation still. You don't have an exclusive buyer-broker network in Ontario. Actually, you don't have exclusive buyer-brokers anywhere in this country, anywhere in North America for that matter. A couple of small brokerages have tried to set up in the States under the model, but they lack the knowledge how to make their model work. So they're failing right now. In Canada, it's very easy to set up an exclusive buyer-broker network. But the brokerages have to give up their right to represent sellers, and this is a major problem. So how can you protect your home buyer from these kind of mistakes? You need to have a set procedure that every buyer follows based on a best practices model for the province that you're working in and the MLS district that you're working in. It will be a model that will tick off all the other real estate agents in your trading area. Everybody's going to call you nuts. Everybody's going to say, oh, what is she doing that for? Why is she still gaining out a tape measure when we paid someone professionally to make blueprints or a floor plan up for this house? Well, the reason you're doing it is so that you don't make mistakes. So that when you quote a square footage, you're always quoting a square footage that you can explain to your buyer. If your buyer tells you that they have an antique table from their grandparents that has been handed down to them from their mother, and they need a dining room that is 10 by 10 feet by 11 and a half feet at a minimum, you're not going to sell them a house that is 9.6 by 10.4. If they say they don't have the money to pay for a new furnace, you will have had that furnace inspected, and the person who did the inspection is going to give you a cost, and you're going to have an insurance program in place where the buyers can access it if their risk of not being able to afford it is that high. There are literally hundreds of different points that buyers need to be protected from in a home buying process, but there is no place in Canada for them to reach right now. The only place in Canada where you can reach right now is to get advice from an advisor, a home ownership advisor. And that is a self-serving advertorial here from what I'm saying. But you save way more money by understanding how to protect yourself when you're buying a house. This nonsense that you have to go in firm in a competitive bidding process to win a home, win the bid, is nonsense. You don't have to bid on any home without knowing the condition of the home is, without knowing what your risk is when you're signing your name in the dotted line. Look, every home buyer, Connie, assumes some degree of risk. Your job is to minimize that risk at the most possible. Now, you have an entire industry is working against you in terms of protecting your buyers. That doesn't mean that those buyers can't get advice from somebody else, an advisor, where they can come back to you and say, hey, this is what we need to do. Your buyer, the only way to protect your buyers from mistakes like a simple mess up on a square footage, which, let's face it, in this case, Connie, the buyers lost. The buyers were forced to lose their deposit because the judge decided that a 20% error in measurement wasn't enough. Now, there are other parts of that case that are such a joke that, I don't want to go into. But there's also probably 4 or 5 other precedents that the judge commented on when he was rendering decision on that case. So you have to take all those things into consideration. Look, Connie, a buyer needs way more protections than any seller ever needs, because a buyer is fighting against the system. You ask the realtor, Connie, if I asked you, hey, who pays the commission? Well, if you're sitting with a seller, Connie, I know that your answer is going to be, the buyer pays the commission. It's included in the sale price. If you're sitting with a buyer, I know what your answer is going to be, Connie. You're going to say, the seller pays the commission. They give the direction to their lawyer. You've just circumvented the whole honest answer. The whole honest answer is this. Home buyers pay all the commissions. They always have. They always will. The only people to pay commissions in this country are the people who actually buy a home. Those people, because of the way that the real estate industry is structured, designed, functions, pay for the real estate services of every Canadian in this country. The reason why commission rates are still around 5% nationally is because The few buyers that actually buy a home in a year have to pay for the real estate services of everybody. When your neighbor calls up a realtor and says, "Hey, I'd like to get a price on my house," the realtors hung up that phone, jumped in their car, and they got over to their house, those people's house, as fast as can be. That neighbor doesn't have to pay for that appraisal. They don't have to pay for the gas in that car coming over there. They don't have to pay for the computer system that was run to produce the comps. They don't have to pay for the digital or paper presentation that was provided to them. They don't have to pay for the hours that went into that. Who pays for all that? How is all that free service delivered, Connie? Your buyers. You might be working with 5 buyers, and 1 buyer buys a home. That means those other 4 buyers receive free real estate services unless you sell them a home. Free real estate services. This is what's wrong with your industry, Connie. You can't protect buyers. You don't know how to protect buyers. Your industry works against buyers. After all, they just told buyers that the average price of a Canadian home increased 31.6% year over year in March. The most ludicrous, fictitious argument you've heard in your lifetime. And these buyers, when they finally do buy, they fund the entire system. And that's why you have to pay $50,000 in commission on $1 million property. It's why you pay another 13% in Ontario on top of the $50,000 in undisclosed GST that magically appears in the statement at the end of your contract. That's right, folks. If you're a home buyer in Ontario, not only do you pay the commission, you pay a price for a home that includes the commission, but it also includes the GST on the commission. But if you go to the local real estate board, they'll tell you there's no GST in a resale home. Well, in this case, 50,000 times 13, it may only be, what's that, $6,500? But that's $6,500 in GST. So obviously, there is GST when you buy a resale home. As I said, the entire system, Connie, is stacked against your home buyers. And if your home buyers are not receiving the advice that they need, something that you cannot give them, you're just going to be a dinosaur of a profession, and you're always going to be on the losing end as we exit this lockdown.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, foreign buyers yesterday made an appearance in the federal budget. You've commented on foreign buyers in both BC and Ontario in the past. Do you see this latest tax that was announced changing the foreign ownership landscape? And was it a problem in recent times, or was it ever really a problem?
Okay, so I'm going to have to answer that question, Jim, in a couple of ways. Number one, no non-Canadian should own a Canadian home. That's my personal belief, okay? If you're going to allow a non-Canadian to own a Canadian home, then it's the responsibility of the government to replace that home with another home that a Canadian family could buy. Equal and similar in quality. That means if you're going to allow foreign buyers to buy single detached homes in the city of Vancouver, you need to build another similar single detached home in the city of Vancouver. Don't take away a single detached home from a Vancouver family, Canadian Vancouver family, and give it to a wealthy Hong Kong family, and then tell the Vancouver family that they have to crowd into a condo. Don't do it. That's number one. Number two, foreign buyers only impact prices because of the way the MLS system is designed. The MLS system is designed to capitalize on non-local buyers raising the average price. We've talked in this episode, Jim, twice now about the false claim by the Canadian Real Estate Association that they made about the national average price was a record $716,820 in March 28th. A falsehood, a ludicrous comment, one of the most insane things that I can believe educated economists, bank managers, bank CROs, the OSFI, CMHC cannot see with their own eyes. Prices, the average home price is not up 31.6%. It's not even up a remote 1/3 of that. It is absolute hogwash. But you all believe it's up 31.6%. So you all foolishly, believing that, go out and talk to a realtor and you rush out and buy a house in a no competition bidding process. I hope you hear what I'm saying here, folks. I'm not saying this to put you down. I'm saying that this is what they have led you to believe since the day you were born. It's a falsehood. It's a myth. They changed the wording. They dropped national average. They dropped the, I can see I got to correct it myself. They dropped the words national average price for homes sold, and this year it became the national average home price was. But when you're talking about sold, you see, the home sold, what you're basically saying is, now, we're not going to talk about the 75% of homes that were on the market that didn't sell. We're only going to talk about the homes that sold, which is why we said in this show, you're really talking about buyers. It's why it's called the average purchase price paid. It was never supposed to be called the average home price. So you're sitting here and you're wondering, well, these foreign buyers, I need a reason why this is happening. How is this happening? The government believes it. Obviously, they're bringing in a 1% tax. Can we all honestly speak how absurd that this decision was? You have an asset class that nationally, so I'm not even talking about your prime markets where your compound annual growth rate has been greater. I'm talking national average. Over the last 20 years, it's 6.7%. Okay? You have an asset class that over the last 20 years, on a national average, supposedly, house price illusion, has increased 6.7%. And you're going to say, oh, we're going to tax you 1%. Oh, that's really going to scare foreign buyers off. We're only going to get 5.7% gain. We're not going to get 6.7% gain. Have you ever heard something so absurd in your entire life? You can own a home as a foreigner, as a non-Canadian. You can buy a Canadian home, a home that has lower property taxes because of the way the property tax system is structured in this country. Certainly, if you buy in Vancouver, you're going to pay way, way, way lower property taxes on that luxury class home than you would in a city like California, someplace in California. Toronto, you get almost the same benefit as you do in Vancouver. The tax savings alone on municipal taxes pretty much offsets that 1%, but your house is also going to gain more because you have a government who just in the same budget where they warned you they're going to tax you 1% if you keep your home vacant, that they're not going to add any more homes. You hear the absurdity in this comment? This is the level of intelligence we're dealing with on the housing stock file. You have a government who didn't explain to Canadians and promise and commit to adding backyards in this country. At the same time, they're telling you if foreigners want to buy it, we're going to charge them 1%. An asset class that averages 5.7% nationwide, higher in your prime cities, higher in single-detached luxury class homes in your prime cities, and we're going to tax them 1%. Well, what investor in the world wouldn't sit back and say, hey, I'll take 5.7% on an asset that I really don't have any risk in? All I can say is this, Jim. In a housing correction, foreign buyers panic and cash out. They fuel a housing correction. This housing correction around, you're not going to have to rely upon the Canadian Real Estate Association national average price. You're not going to have to worry about that nonsense. There are going to be alternatives available for you to see what house prices are really dropping. I mean, The 40 and 50% hit that Ontarians took selling a single detached home between 1998 and 1997, which is never recorded, never appears in the housing charts in this country, even though everybody who lived through it knows it happened. That you're not going to have to rely on that anymore. They made a huge mistake in this April release. The same mistake they made in March, by the way. Same mistake they made in April, by the way. They made this statement. The actual national average home price was a record $716,828 in March 21, up 31.6%. CBC, CTV, BNN Bloomberg, every single local newspaper, every single major newspaper, every single reporter in this country fell for it. They all reported it. Not one of them told you the magic math that was used to reach that 31.6%. In a housing correction, everybody gets to be told the truth.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.